I know the Red Wing crowd is a very passionate, loyal fan base. And we love talking Red Wing hockey, and we're 2 days away from the trade deadline. We're 50 hours away from the trade deadline, 51 hours away from the trade deadline. And Gator, did you feel like Florida came in and sent a message to the Detroit organization and to that was a bit of an eye-opening performance? What happened over the weekend?
I think it's a little eye-opening. I mean, it's a taste of the style of hockey that plays in the playoffs and what you have to do to win and advance. And this is there's a disparity between the two teams. I mean, Florida's one of, if not the best team in the National Hockey League, and the Red Wings are on schedule to make the playoffs.
An up-and-comer, babe.
Yeah.
But here's the question. Florida just adds Vladimir Tarasenko from Ottawa. Do we need to look in the mirror and say it's not worth it this year? Like, Florida was better than Detroit and just got even more betterer and is making the playoffs. Would you give up any future asset to just make the playoffs? Do we really believe that in a 7-game series, anything can happen if Detroit gets matched up with Florida at some point?
Look, anything can happen because it is hockey.
Yep.
Hot goaltenders have reigned supreme when you get to April, May, and June. We've seen it. But your question is valid. I'm not going to do something. I'm not going to give up a first-round pick for a rental. All right? I'm not like Jake Gensel, for instance. He's a rental, correct? Is he free agent at the end of the season?
His contract is up.
So I'm not doing that. As enticing as that might be, and he's a really nice player, but I'm not doing that. Would I do that for someone who you would have control over for a couple of years and is playing at a really high level, like higher than Larkin level? Yes, but that's not available to me.
I feel like our desperation to see postseason hockey is skewing our better judgment.
I'm not letting it do it to me because I'll be steadfast on this. This is a playoff team right now. They're a playoff team right now. If you're going to add a rental player, how much better? I don't think I think it makes you incrementally better. I don't think it makes you tons better. So I'm not going to make a move like that for a rental player. Would I make a move for a player that I can re-sign and know that I would re-sign? Possibly.
Well, would Gensel be in that category?
I don't know. I think he puts himself in a range that you start to get uncomfortable with how much he'd cost.
I mean, is Middlestad in that range? The 25-year-old center from Buffalo?
Probably more so because he's 25. But again, it's even though he's the leading scorer, he's well below a point a game.
I don't want to overreact to the Florida Red Wing result. I mean, because, look, that's why it's maybe important to stay out of that wild card spot and get into the and not have to do the play one of the top seeds if you're the wild card. If they can get into that number 3 spot, they could be playing Toronto or Boston in the first round. And no, I mean, they'd be on a collision course with Florida eventually. But I guess this whole thing, do you sell out this year? Do you really believe anything can happen? We talked about the stat that Florida had beaten Detroit 20 of 22 games and by significant margins going into the Red Wings win the last time out, and then Florida beats them 4-0. Like, Florida's had their way with Detroit. Your idea that they have a playoff caliber team now, but don't get too aggressive this year is probably the most sensible approach to take to the trade deadline.
I think there are 3 words to live by right now. Trust the Yzer plan. Trust it. Yeah. I trust Steve Yzerman to do what's best. They've got this team here. I think that if there are moves made, there are going to be moves made to perhaps clear a roster space so that Edvinsson can come up.
But didn't both 1 seeds lose in the first round last year?
I think it can happen.
Yeah.
But how far do those teams advance? I don't know.
Well, one of them wasn't Florida one of them that upset a 1 seed? And they've been dealing with injuries and all that, if I recall correctly.